The Jewish tradition is a tradition that says, stand strong with your principles, and that makes you subversive. That means that you go against the powers to be. Here we are with special session on Purim, which is coming up this Thursday night. And before we start, for those who would like to follow in sefaria.org, which has a text online, I'm going to share my screen and give people a quick tour how to find the text. So this is a text. When you go into sefaria.org, you will click the three lines on the top left, and that will take you to the Sefaria library. You're going to scroll down, and where you have the texts, these are all the classical texts, you're going to click on more, and then go to Chassidut, click on Chassidut. Once you click on Chassidut, you have a lot of different books there, and you're going to scroll down till you find the Sefat Emet, and there Sefat Emet is on the left. Click on Sefat Emet, and then what you want to do is go to the drop-down menu at the top to the table of contents, go to Exodus, then scroll down till you find Parashat for Purim, which is right after Parashat Zachor. You click on that, and you go to number 5. We're going to have a text in number 5, and then another text in number 20. So section 5 and section 20. So here we go. So we are, and then when you go into section 5, you're going to go down, scroll down to the paragraph that is marked as number 3. That's a long trek to find our text, but here we are. So it says in the Megillah, every day Mordechai would be walking by the palace to check on Esther. That's the point. So it says Sefat Emet, it's presumably all the things that are mentioned in the Megillah were for the purpose of the miracle of the story of the Megillah, which was the redemption of the Jews from the danger that came upon them. And surely this is a great thing. Since 4 or 5 years have passed since since Esther was taken to the palace.
And it takes place in Persia, which I believe is Iran today, in between the first temple and the second temple, towards the end of the first Babylonian exile. So we're talking about 2,400 plus years ago. As you may know, we have the two heroes of our story. We have Mordechai, the leader of the Jewish people at the time, and we have a woman, heroine of the story, named Esther, whose name was also known as Hadassah, but she's more famously known as Esther. Esther and Mordechai, they were cousins. They were first cousins. And in addition, our sages teach us that they were actually husband and wife, but that's a subject for another day. In any event, when the Persian king Achashverosh, after he had his wife, the queen, killed for certain reasons. He decided he wanted a new queen. He had a contest to see who was the most beautiful girl he wanted to marry. And this Jewish girl, Esther, was taken by force along with many other girls, and she was brought to a special place where these girls were beautified and taken care of for a certain period of time, and then they were brought individually before the king to see which one he was going to like the best. Now,
Esther won.
Esther, unfortunately, this was a contest you didn't want to win. But in the long run, of course, like everything else in the story of Purim, things that looked like they were bad events, terrible events, actually all led to the miracles. In any event, there was a long period of time whereby Esther was held in this prison where she was being waiting for this contest to take place. It was a period of many years, actually. Every single day, and this is what we're going to get into, her cousin / husband, Mordechai, walked and sat himself down in front of this palatial structure to inquire as to how Esther was.
So what's the great thing here? The great thing here that Mordechai would keep up his daily walk and daily checking in on her for all that time. That's a dedication. Mordechai tzaddik halach b'chol yom vayom, and Mordechai the tzaddik, the righteous one, went every day lirot b'shloma b'avur ki hayta yetuma, to see to check upon her and upon her well-being, because she was an orphan, and she was in distress because she was locked up in a stranger's house, meaning Achashverosh's house in the palace. And on the merit of this, Mordechai was granted a miracle. So b'zchut zeh, meaning on the merit of what? On the merit that for 4 or 5 years he was checking in on her every day.
What the Sefat Emet is alluding to here is something very great about Purim, which is different from all other holidays and miracles. If one would read the story of Purim in the Megillat Esther, in the scroll of Esther, one will not see burning bushes, one will not see splitting of the seas or plagues. One will, if you're reading this story, you would think you're reading some historical novel or you're watching some sort of a soap opera on TV. It's palace intrigue.
Right.
It's all sorts of stuff.
It's the Jewish version of the West Wing, right?
Right. But we do not find anywhere in the 10 chapters of this biblical scroll, we do not find even God's name mentioned. Not once. Outwardly.
That's right. That's right.
This is to show that this was a different kind of a miracle. It was a miracle brought about within the framework of nature through the activity and the doings of human beings.
Yeah.
And what the Sefat Emet is pointing out here is every detail, he says at the beginning,
right.
Every detail is important to the unfolding of this people-centered miracle. So it begins here. It begins even before here. But he's saying this is not just some. Oh, and Mordechai went to check on his cousin every day.
That's right.
Big deal. It is a big deal because it leads to God opening up His compassion for the Jewish people, planting the seeds of the future miracle. Because we see the compassion and the empathy that Mordechai had for this orphan.
That's right. That's right.
That's the point.
So that, and that's a very, I think it's an important principle. You see that, for instance, in Cordovero's Tomer Devorah, right, where he says that that basically our job as humans is to imitate God, and vice versa. When we imitate God, so God will imitate us. So there's a way that so we were granted God's compassion, but it wasn't just random that God decided to be compassionate, but because Mordechai had compassion, so compassion begets compassion, etc. So I think that's a beautiful principle. And I think the deeper layer of ethical, the ethical principles. It's not only that we're wanting to be good; we're wanting to be good because we want to have this dance with Hashem, with God, and God will give us what we're willing to give. Right? And it's written also that when in the Megillah that Haman's advisors would tell him that Yom Yom, every day, Mordechai was refusing to bow down, and there's a parallel here between the every day that Mordechai was refusing to bow down and the every day that he was going to see to check on Esther. And we see the same language, and the Sefat Emet is pointing out that linguistic connection. זכה לזה לנצח את המן הרשע ולהכניסו בכל יום ויום. So it's because Mordechai would go each day to check on Esther. That's why he merited to be victorious over Haman and to anger him every day, every and each day. So what is he exactly trying to say here?
Exactly, which led to eventually to his downfall. So he's trying to say that we see that each and every day, that language in Hebrew, each and every day he went to check on Esther, and he merited, because of that act, he merited each and every day the same language is used when it speaks about Haman becoming angry with him to the point where he wanted to kill him and the entire Jewish people. Now you would say, well, wow, that doesn't sound like a good result of a kind deed. Yeah. But of course, again, this edict that was brought as a result of Haman's anger actually led to his downfall. So many things going on there. The really bad things were actually leading to a really good thing. But none of it would have happened if Mordechai wouldn't have been compassionate to an orphan. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's the beauty of this.
So yes, well, it's interesting, that the language is exactly the same language, but it's referring to two opposites. One is compassion, and the other is anger, right? So so there's something about that, right? That Mordechai, you could say he's causing anger where anger is needed, which is to take down Haman. Basically, he's cracking his cool. Right. It's like when you have an opponent. They say in martial arts like that. It's like if you can get your opponent to lose their cool, you get the advantage, right? So you could say that, right? So in some ways, he's by getting Haman to get that upset, that was really the beginning of the downfall of Haman. You could call it like nonviolent resistance, right? He didn't say anything; he just didn't want to bow down. But you could say that's civil disobedience, or that kind of thing, right? That's what Mordechai was doing. But anyway,
that's exactly what it was. I like it.
Yeah. But it stirred up so much anger because Haman was so arrogant, right? It's almost like the more arrogant he was, the more anger he, all it took is not to bow down to him, and then he just basically loses it. So I mean, that's my commentary. That's not what's
Right, right.
yeah. It's my free association
No,
here, but
absolutely.
yeah,
It's all how we perceive things and react to things. He could have said, "Who is this guy? What's he doing here? It's like, who's that guy who's not bowing down to me?"
yeah.
Bow down to people. Oh, yeah, So it's how we react. Uh, do I react? It's all me as a victim,
Right,
as an ego thing, arrogantly, as you said,
right,
or do I try to see things through
yeah,
the other? Why is that guy sitting down in the middle of the road?
yeah.
What's bothering him?
If Haman had empathy, the story would have been a whole different story, right? I mean,
Right,
that's
exactly.
so. Let's point people to the next paragraph, which is you really have to scroll down in if you're on Sefaria. This is now going to be section 20, and it's going to be the paragraph that's marked as number 2. And by the way, if you're looking at different texts of the Sefat Emet, it's Taf Resh Nun Gimel in the Purim section. So let me continue. Mordechai lo ichra lashon atid. So in the Megillah it says, and Mordechai will not bow down. That's what the image is pointing out, but this is in the future tense. So the question is why? It should have said, well, he did not bow down. But the text actually says, and Mordechai will not bow down. So he answers, Ki le'olam bechol dor nimtza b'chlal Yisrael ish tzadik shu lo ichra. Because forever in each generation, in all of history, right, there's amongst the people of Israel, there's also always found one righteous person who will not bow down.
Not compromising one's values and traditions for whatever reasons one might be tempted
Right.
to do that. There's a lot of pressures, all different kinds of pressures. Some in that time it was an actual physical threat. If you don't give up your traditions and your cultural values, we're going to kill you. I mean, that's pretty clear.
Right.
But it can be in very subtle ways as well. It can be a lot of social pressure. There can be social media pressure. And there could be a lot of pressures which can prevent a person from expressing themselves because they feel like they're going to get shut down or who knows what. But there always has to be somebody, or maybe more, as we'll see, in each of us, the power to withstand that pressure.
That's right. That's right. You know, Rebelli, it reminds me of I was once working at actually Vassar College. I was the chaplain, kind of like the Hillel director, you could say, the chaplain for the Jewish student. And there was a Fruma Yid. He was like a learned guy. Was Jewishly learned, and but he was also a professor there. So he and I befriended each other. He had a course. One of his courses that was called Judaism and Subversion, which I thought was very, very neat. And the course his whole course was going throughout Jewish history and showing, starting from Moses. Moses was a subversive, right? Basically, he said to the Pharaoh, no. Right? And he said that this is just what the Sefat Emet is saying. In every generation, the Jewish tradition is a tradition that says, stand strong with your principles, and that makes you subversive. That means that you go against the powers to be, you go against authorities to be, the influences to be, whatever it is, because we, as a tradition, we're a principled people, and we, we'll stand up for that. And this is I see Sefat Emet here. Says Sefat Emet basically wrote that course, right? It's like in every generation, there's going to be some subversive Jew, who's going to lead the
charge.
The charge to be principled and not bow down to. וזה שכתוב ויבז בעיניו לשלוח יד במרדכי לבדו. So, and Stem says, and this is why it's written in the Megillah, and it was two too insignificant in Haman's eyes to harm Mordechai alone. Mordechai. He could have punished only Mordechai, but he didn't. Right? He actually decided to punish all the Jewish people,
right.
all of Mordechai's people.
Right, I'm Mordechai. Right. Once he found out that he was a Jew, then for some reason it became not I want to get this guy because he's not bowing down. I want to get all of the people that this guy is a part of. So that sounds, at first glance, wow, that's kind of extreme. I mean, punish the guy that's doing the bad thing that you don't like. So the Sefat Emet is giving us a beautiful psychological insight into why.
פירוש כי הבין כי מרדכי יצא מן הכלל ללמד על הכלל כולו. The meaning of this is because Haman understood that Mordechai was being the exception that teaches about the rule.
In terms of a Talmudic learning, there are certain
13
rules,
principles, right?
And there are 13 principal rules of how to approach a Talmudic text. And one of the rules, which the Sefat Emet is applying to our situation here, is that if you have a rule, a general rule, everything is inside the rule.
Yeah.
But for a particular reason, one of the things inside that rule is an exception, then that exception ricochets back to everything that's inside that room, that's inside that rule. So over here, once Haman understood that this one guy is an exception, so he knew, oh, no. Then we apply what this guy's up to, like you were saying before, Reb Ruvain, to all the Jewish people. If this guy's a troublemaker,
right, that means
it's
everybody
not just
else.
him. It's got to be, there's something in these people's head and these people's DNA. Every Jew is going to be like this to a certain extent. It must be in their DNA. So I've got to get them all, or else I'm in trouble.
ואפילו אם ימית את מרדכי, יהיה אחר במקומו בכוח כלל יהודי. So Haman understood that even if he kills Mordechai, there will be somebody else who will rise in his stead, because the rule is that all Jews would be that exception, would not bow down. לכן רצה לאבד את כל עם מרדכי, and that is why Haman wanted to annihilate all of the people of Mordechai.
But in summary, the two main points that we made today is, number one, there's a karmic effect to good deeds beyond which we can even imagine. That's any right. Little thing, any little move that we make in this world in a positive way, the repercussions can be miraculous in ways that we have no idea where it's going to come back to us in. Here it led to the entire miracle of Purim, just by being kind to the orphan. And secondly, the idea of not bowing teaches us that it's not just Mordechai. Once we see the story of a Mordechai that didn't bow, or an Abraham that didn't bow, or a Moses that didn't give in to the Pharaoh, as he was saying before, once we see this paradigm, it's not just, oh, wow, he was a great righteous person. No, it means that we're supposed to learn the rule from the exception. That's that right. We have this exceptionalism within us, the potential power to stand up against all kinds of injustices and to be strong in our faith and have courage of our convictions. Right.
What I'm curious about, though, is why the Sefat Emet, it almost feels like the Sefat Emet is redeeming Haman. First of all, he's giving him the credit of being wise enough to see, to see that. And also he's rationalizing his terrible choice.
Clever. You can be clever, but not wise.
Clever, but not wise, yeah. And that's the depth of the Megillah of Esther, of the whole Purim. I think it's back to what you said in the beginning. Rebelli, that you'd think it's a simple story, like a like a West Wing drama, but it's much deeper than that. It really shows a deeply embedded tension between arrogance and evil and short-sightedness, albeit clever. You know, it can be clever, but it's still not good. And Mordechai, who's represents compassion and more than compassion, dedication. You know, it's sort of like a compassion with a deep dedication to being there for all that time.
The main thing is to be happy, to be misameach, to be very joyful on Purim. It's a little bit harder when it comes out on a Friday because you have to get ready for Shabbos and you can't get it too carried away. But I hope everyone has a wonderful, joyous Purim. The idea, one of the mitzvahs, of course, is to go around presenting your neighbors with gifts of food. Of course, this year it might have to be done through Zoom. I don't know. But the idea is to have a great time.
Or through delivery. You have all these delivery companies now, right? So.
Right. Uber Eats, Mishloach Manos, maybe? I don't know.
That's right.
And of course, it started one way, but everything flipped over to be the other way. V'nahafachu. V'nahafach, 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 v'nahafachu. V'nahafach, 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 v'nahafachu. Asher yishletu ha-Yehudim hema b'sonehem. Asher yishletu ha-Yehudim hema b'sonehem. Oh yeah, let's go. Asher yishletu ha-Yehudim hema b'sonehem. One more time. Asher yishletu ha-Yehudim.
So happy Purim, everybody. If you enjoyed this, if you're here for the first time, welcome. And please subscribe, give us a like. Enjoy Purim. May it be a wonderful, happy, ecstatic Purim. Don't drink too much, but don't drink too little. And with that, we're going to say shalom. And God willing, see you next Wednesday morning at the same time, 9 o'clock Eastern. Shalom for now.